Hey guys, it's Jasper. Welcome back to my channel. So today I built a sea lion habitat using the North America Animal Pack. This was a fun build for me because I actually did a lot of things that I don't usually do. I barely used any foliage and it's like almost entirely rocks. Because you know, that matches what kind of habitats they're usually in zoos, but also on the coastline where they actually live in the wild, so I wanted it to look at least like semi-realistic. So yeah, I started off just terraforming, making a big pool. I wanted this to be essentially like a 360 viewing platform, underwater viewing actually, because I thought that would be pretty interesting. I've definitely seen this kind of thing before. I think the Calgary Zoo has it for penguins, I believe, but I could be wrong. But I've also seen it at a few other places. I'm sure it's pretty common. So that was where I got my inspiration. A lot of this build is going to be rock work, so I don't know how much I'm going to have to say over top of that, because it's just a lot of building these like central pieces that I duplicate and move around, rotate, and adjust so that they fit in everywhere, make it look nice. I used almost entirely faux rocks. Actually, I think I only used faux rocks. I don't think I touched any of the real rocks. So yeah, talking about the sea lion, I'm honestly shocked that we even got them. I wasn't expecting it at all. No hate to the seals, but they definitely aren't one of the best animals in the game. Their movement's just a little awkward. Not even their animations, just like their hitbox and whatnot. So I wasn't expecting to get sea lions, but I'm really happy we did. Although they have a huge problem with their hitboxes too. Like, when I first put them in here, you'll see it in a bit, they could not move anywhere. And I didn't know what to do about that, because like I tried removing some of the rocks, see if they would walk around, but no, like I couldn't fix it. So I actually went in and tweaked the files and gave them the otter navigation map so that they could move anywhere the otter would be able to move, assuming, you know, the settings were the same. So like they require water that's 3 meters deep to swim instead of 2 and that kind of thing. But besides that, they can walk anywhere an otter could walk, which I think fits them anyway, but I'm sure there's, you know, some things behind the scenes that I don't see that explains why Frontier didn't just do that. Because they have, I think, the seal one right now, which means they don't really walk anywhere. But I'm hoping that gets fixed, like, in the near future. Maybe it'll be fixed when this is released. Fingers crossed, but I kind of doubt it. Yeah, that was, like, the biggest struggle I had with this build. Just putting them in and realizing that I didn't really have a lot of options. But I wanted to build a rock habitat, so I found a way. I didn't really have any, like, backup plans, because what was I gonna do, build them like a little forest to live in? That'd be ridiculous. I found my way. And I think it turned out nice in the end. And it looks realistic, so hopefully Frontier fixes it within like a couple weeks at most. But honestly, I probably shouldn't have waited this long to test with the sea lions in. I should put my animals in earlier when I'm doing builds like this. I kind of wait too long. And then I realize things like this and I get very scared because the entire build's useless. Like they couldn't even move an inch, so that sucked, but I'm glad I had the workaround. I wouldn't have wanted to restart or anything. And anyway, this let me, you know, build like interesting viewing points too, like some arches, some ramps, and just like cute things like that where they would sleep and eat. Yeah, you'll see me messing around here trying to figure out like what the problem is. I was hoping that maybe if I just remove some of the little rocks they'd be able to walk around, but clearly not. So at some point I just give up and I go tweak the files. Which obviously I don't recommend doing unless you've backed up your game and you're comfortable doing that. I personally support modding, but obviously you're taking a risk when you modify game files, so, you know, it's at your own discretion. Anyways, here you can see me building one of the ramps I talked about, just to give them something more interesting to walk on, and it gives a nice view from when you're actually in the middle, looking around, because it's like mostly underwater, but you can see the edges. I think it's a really nice viewing area. Like if I saw this in a real zoo, like in person, I've only seen pictures, but if I saw it in person, I'd be like, this is great. And it works well for the sea lions because they're almost always swimming, unless they're like sleeping, eating, that kind of thing. A lot of this build is just small details and decorating, making it look nice. I use the small rocks a lot here, because they're obviously one of the best ones we've got. I'm hoping Frontier will give more faux rocks at some point in the future. I don't know what they could give it with, maybe just like a free update or something. That would be nice. But they're definitely one of the most like versatile things we have, because you can use them in any build. Like there are builds like this that you can make entirely out of faux rocks, or you can just add them to, you know, actual like foliage heavy builds. But either way, they look good. So I hope we get a few more. Right now it's hard to make it not look repetitive. I mean, I do my best, but like it's the same few rocks over and over again. I also made sure I filled the underwater area with rocks along the border, just to make it look nicer, especially from where the guests would be viewing. It just makes it look a bit more realistic and a bit, I don't know, more natural, even though they're faux rocks. It just helps make it look nice. I feel like in real zoos though, they generally choose like kind of plaster backgrounds, or just like walls, painted walls, that kind of thing, for underwater viewing, which I could have done. I don't know, this is more like a semi-realistic build with a lot of rocks and whatnot, so I didn't really want to use those kind of pieces, but I feel like that's what you see in a real zoo. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe the zoos I've been to haven't really had this, but it looks nice either way, I think. I just think with all the rocks above, it would have looked weird to put kind of like plaster walls all along the inside, or underwater. Also, putting the little rocks along the edges at the bottom looks really nice and natural, so I do that around the whole thing basically. I think it helps a lot. At some point here, I make the water transparent just to make it easier to edit. I probably should have done it sooner, because I was kind of struggling when I was putting the rocks underwater, but it really helps building with transparent water. I'm so glad they added the ability to change the water. I'm planning on using it for one of my next builds, because I want to do more of a wetlands type build. I wish we had some kind of like wetlands biome, or like pre-built, I don't know. I know that like they have a few maps that are trying to mimic wetlands. There's one that's called something Mire, but you know, I miss the Zoo Tycoon 2 wetlands. But yeah, I'll be able to make the water kind of greenish and swampy, and I'm excited about that. I'm probably gonna do it for the moose, or maybe the beaver, or both. I also just quickly set aside the trees that I want to use later here, just so I didn't forget. So most of the foliage that I put in this build was obviously underwater. I put very little outside. I think there's literally just like, yeah, 2 bushes and a dead tree. But the underwater foliage just makes it look a lot more alive and colorful, I guess. I'm really glad they added that. I'm assuming it was with the aquatic pack. Honestly, the aquatic pack is still like S tier. It's really up there, especially with like the foliage, the props, the rocks, all of it. So good. I think it's the one I use most often. I also cropped out a bunch of these, but I think I left some in here. There were so many times where I just stop and like look at these guys swimming or sleeping. I think they're so cute. I know some people were saying that the size is a little off for the males, so maybe they should fix that, but they're so cute. I can let it slide. Because the habitat's so big, I also tried to spread out the food and enrichment objects, just to give them a reason to explore the whole thing. I think, like, they definitely can go everywhere, but they mostly stay up until the Skittle object. They don't really go past that, but I don't think I really put anything there to attract them, so maybe that's on me. For the guest area, I wanted to put down, like, kind of like white tile, white marble, but I couldn't find anything that worked well. Maybe I should have just done concrete, but I stuck with the metal. It's one of my favorites for indoor builds. I just wish we could change the color so that it would be tile or something like that. Because I think that's realistic, but we don't have any tile options really. There's a lot of bricks and stones, which are nice in certain contexts, but it would have been nice to have some kind of like marble for this. Maybe I'm just being picky. So for the education board, I did the same thing as my last build, where I just put in a placeholder with the default texture, because I knew that for the actual final build I was going to make my own. This one's a lot smaller than the other one, because I just used the 2-meter TV screen. So it kind of just has the basic details, but I wanted it to be semi-consistent, so I used my own. I also used some of the new guest barriers in the rocks, just in case. I know the path touches them a little, and I didn't want, you know, guests clipping through them. Those are really helpful. And for the backstaging area, I did, honestly, the bare minimum. I used the corrugated metal and the faux rock skin. It looks pretty bad if you look at it up close. Like, I didn't try to make it look nice, but I wanted it to be where if you could see it from, like, any angle where you would be viewing the animals, it doesn't look super obvious or anything like that. So I just did like a basic thing covered in rocks and covered it up with some foliage too. The thing is, like, I said it in my last one too, but just doing the backstage areas for these one-off habitats is just kind of boring, and I don't want to put in the effort to make it look nice, because I know that, like, I'm not going to use it for any other animals, and I would have to put them all, like, all the staff facilities in one spot. I don't know. Maybe when I eventually do like a full zoo or even a mini zoo type thing, I'll actually like put in the effort to do a nice backstaging area, because like it can be fun, but it's definitely not for things like this, at least to me. But yeah, just like don't look at it too closely. It wasn't meant to look nice. I just honestly wanted it to blend in. The last thing I do is just add ton of trees all along the outside, just surrounding the whole like backside of the habitat, and even a bit at the front. I just wanted it to look a little more finished in the end. I feel like if you just, when I'm taking like cinematics and stuff, if you just leave the I don't know, flat background terrain, it just looks a little boring, and like you have so much of your zoo just left unfinished. So I wanted to fill it in. I even chose a lot of the orange trees, because, you know, fall vibes. Anyways, that's it for the build, so now we'll move on to the cinematics. Thanks for watching.